Okay, so welcome to this workshop. I've been really excited about doing it for so long, and time just goes by, right? And then when I put that survey out, and I got some really interesting responses from people saying, you know, that their focus is direct bookings, standing out online, and really just continuing to make an impact with your marketing. I realized that that's the gap in the market. That's where we need to be moving. And so it's time to do this. The framework that I'm going to show you today is designed to get you to a place of more confidence, less frustration with the OTAs, which we all know happens. Happier guests, of course, because the end result is that the guests that you attract to your business are the ones that resonate and connect with what you offer, and for a healthier bottom line, which is what we all want. And so this workshop is designed for those of you who do it all at your property. I've been there myself. You're running the show, you're doing the marketing, you might have some external techie help, but the ideas come from you. And I know how difficult that can be. I know you're all doing a fantastic job, but with a little more guidance, there is a lot that can be done to drive traffic to your site to get those more coveted direct bookings. Okay, so I'm going to ask you all to stay on mute. I can see that everyone's done that, and then I will give time for Q&A at the end. Okay, so let's get going with this first slide here. The fundamental idea behind all of my work is to achieve progress and not always perfection, because I'm a perfectionist myself, so that's quite hard for me to say. And I have to say, sometimes I find it difficult to just get something out there that I haven't reviewed 1,000 times, but then things don't get done. So that's my wish for you too, to achieve the progress towards getting more customers to engage and book. We've all got to start somewhere, and sometimes the one small piece of that puzzle is enough to let everything else fall into place. So let's get everyone to the point of having more resilient businesses and less reliance on the OTAs. We're not going to be able to do everything and have all the solutions in this 1 hour session, of course, but I'm going to show you a framework that I'm going to give you some ideas about getting started. And then if you have some time over the next few weeks, we'll see how we can move on working together. I know that you're all here because you're pioneers and you're all courageous and you want the best thing for your businesses. So I'm sure that today we're going to find some answers to help you move forward too. Okay, this question, I want to change your mindset about it. This is one of the most frequently asked questions I get. Now, obviously, Google, as opposed to Bing or as opposed to any of the other search engines, is the one I get asked the most about because it is the biggest in the world. My answer is always the same. There is no quick fix. It takes time and effort, but it also should not overwhelm you or take over your life. All efforts that you put into improving your ranking on Google, whether that's techie or not, and I'll explain the not techie stuff in a minute, will also improve, the customer experience on your website. This is where the bold and clear messaging comes in. This is where the stories come in. And this is often the part that gets left behind when we associate in our minds creating better Google rankings with SEO techniques. I'm not saying we don't need them. I'm just saying that it's only a part of the actual process. So this will help you to gain clarity when you're focusing on something other than just the techie stuff about getting to that front page. And also, let's not forget that many of those companies that are on the front page have paid a lot to be there, and we can't pretend that we will compete with that on a daily basis. So when you begin to see the job of trying to get higher up the rankings on Google as an ongoing holistic process that actually enables and activates and directs not just your marketing decisions, but your company ethos and goals, then this aspiration, this question becomes less of a challenge and more of a journey, which is what I wish for you. So I'm going to show you my framework in a second, but first of all, you don't have to answer this. You can pop it in the chat if you want to, but you can answer it just for yourself and keep it private. On a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being low and 5 being high, how confident are you right now that you have the tools and knowledge to increase your direct bookings? If you want to pop it in the chat, you can, but just hold it there, keep it, and we're going to have a look at this at the end after we've put some ideas your way to increase that confidence. This is a no blame, no shame space. If you have any questions at all, then I will have time to address them at the end, of course. So do jot them down, and then we'll take a look at them as we begin to finish. I've been right there where you are. I just mentioned to Vicky and Andrew, who were there, that it's so difficult when everything falls down around your ears. We had an 8.8 earthquake in Chile. It was the 5th largest in recorded history of the planet, and all our reservations were cancelled overnight. And then the volcano in our village erupted, and again, same thing. And so the relentless challenges that come up, and also the unexpected challenges that come up every day, just mean you right now you've got through the pandemic, but still your to-do list probably doesn't seem any shorter at all. I'm the one who will often put something on the end of my to-do list after I've done it, just to be able to cross it out. I don't know if anybody else does that. Put a big thumbs up in the chat if you do, but it's one of my yeah, it makes me feel good. I know I shouldn't, but it does make me feel like I've achieved something, but my list never gets any shorter. So let's get going. I've called this my Persuasive Marketing Compass. And the reason is it's designed to guide you and orientate you. I've used this same framework with various clients, all of whom have achieved an increase in their direct bookings. One achieved 27% increase over a 6-month period by employing this mix of actions, tips, and strategies that I'm going to share with you in this overview. So let's take a closer look at these sections as we move forward. The focus today is going to be on the bold messaging because we're talking about stories, but we are going to go through them all. Okay. Oh, that didn't move along. So there we go. Take a look at these few questions. What and how you answer these questions defines your brand character or your brand personality. And ultimately, this is what people connect with. And so I think we do tend to get stuck when we're thinking about marketing, that there's so many small actions we can take that improve our rankings and our website, etc. But we often forget that this is all actually about connection. And the pandemic did teach us this, but I think it's something we really need to hold on to, that this is what people connect with, is who we are, and who we are very much defines how we appeal and resonate with the people around us, or the target profiles we're trying to attract. So you don't have to answer these questions now. I just want you to look at them and think about the top half of your homepage on your website. Hi there, Cheryl. Could I ask you to mute? It's great that you've just popped on there. Sorry to ask you to do something without saying a proper hello. There, thank you so much. That's great. I could just hear a noise in the background there. We're going to have time for some questions at the end, Cheryl. And if you have anything during the presentation, then just pop it into the chat. Okay, so where was I? Yes, you don't have to answer these questions right now. What I would like you to do is think about the top half of your homepage on your website. What's that first impression that it gives? Does it answer these questions? And I know they're quite deep, some of these questions, but the idea is to get us to a point where that above the fold section on your site really does give someone a great idea about what you do, who you are, well, who you're serving, and what your value is that you offer, and also then what they need to do to book. Because without that, we are asking people to use just far too many brain calories. And who wants to use brain calories when all they want to do is book a holiday? So we're going to look at this in a bit more detail, but I just want you to hold for a second. What does that first impression of your website say about you and your business? Would you be excited to book with you? Now, I know that a lot of you have overhauled your websites, and I know you've done some work during COVID to take a look at those, but I want us to be thinking about how we're actually resonating and connecting with people as we go forward right now. So there are some really fancy definitions around branding and marketing. But for those of you, I think most of you on the call have been following my work for some time anyway, you'll know that I absolutely love keeping things simple. I think that comes from having 2 small children. Life just gets too complex when you don't. Branding is not just about logos and color palettes. They're super important, but branding is quite simply humans connecting with an idea. That's the most simple definition of branding. That idea is your brand personality. It's who you are, it's what you do. And so how you define your brand personality is by understanding your own values, your brand archetype, which is something that I will go into, not today, but there would more information come in about that later, because it takes longer than the time we have today. But the most important thing is working out the stories that connect on an emotional level with our target audiences. And we all have them. We all have them. We're going to look at the questions in a second that are going to elicit some of those stories from you that you can then use in your marketing to resonate and encourage people then to begin to book direct instead of just going straight through the OTAs. Marketing, the definition of marketing. So if branding is all about connecting with people, marketing is just simply a vehicle through which you deliver your message. And so I think that really, really helps to simplify it to that stage where branding is about the connection. It's about the people. It's about who you are. Marketing is simply how you put that information out there. So it really becomes clear that branding is very important at the beginning. You need to get that right before you can begin the journey of putting your marketing messaging onto the vehicles that we use, such as social media and all the other ways that we get our words out there. Then comes the chicken and egg part. I often get this question. Do you define your brand first and set out then to attract customers through your messaging, your authenticity in your messaging? Or do you create your offer around what you think your target audiences want? Now, the answer to that is that you can try both, but the best suggestion is that you actually understand who you are, before you go into who you're trying to attract, purely because we're talking about value, about connection, and people don't connect unless they feel authentically connected with you. I've said connected twice there. People don't connect with you unless they feel drawn towards you. And so to feel drawn towards someone, you need to feel that you have some trust there, that that person gets you, that they understand where you're coming from. And so ultimately, you cannot talk about creating a business all around what people want without actually being 100% part of your ethos yourself and giving over 100% of you and being a part of your business, especially in hospitality. It's so see-through when somebody doesn't want to be doing their job. Okay. We need a little bit of human psychology in here as well, and we'll get onto that quickly. But ultimately, if you're not clear on who you are, what gets you excited, and who you want to serve, the messaging will not be authentic. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying close the doors on someone if they're not who you want to serve. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm talking about this from the perspective of the messaging that you put out there. And so the more of the great stuff you do that's authentic, the more people you get to resonate with you, to connect and to come and to book, the more of a wonderful experience they have because they've connected with you, the more people they tell about you who are in this same circle, and that's how it moves forward. So this is the basis of driving direct. It's not just all about icons on websites and upgrading the techie stuff on your site. Let's just have a look at the closer look at the psychology of how people make buying decisions when it comes to booking their accommodation. This is really simple. I've simplified this over the years because there's so much about customers that you can try to learn about, but ultimately we can't convince someone who wants to go to London to go to Paris, right? So if customers begin looking for hotels in London, it's because they want to go to London. So location is always going to come first. Then we filter people down then according to property type, because if you have a family, you're probably not looking for a hotel that's going to be right near the clubs in Ibiza, for example, right? And so your location comes first, the property type, and then price. So I've chosen a hotel in London, it has a pool for my kids, and then the price comes. We can't control that one, but we can understand the budgets of the target audiences by doing some work to get to know them better, understanding what they want, so that we can then put together the packages or the add-ons that enhance their stays. Now comes the interesting part. Numbers 4 and 5 on this, it's a little bit like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You've got the basics, and then you've got the enhanced desired results when you're actually researching a property to travel to. So when all things are equal, potential customers are guided by a really simple question: what's in it for me? It really is as simple as that. What's in it for me? What are the benefits of staying with you? And to generate a perceived value that's engaging and attractive to your target audience, you not only need to understand your own brand personality, as we already talked about, but you need to stay true to it and understand your target audience's needs, pain points, problems, and questions, so that you can meet them where they are right now. And then the answers to those questions are what you capture in your bold, authentic messaging through stories that we're going to get onto. So people need to be able to trust you, ultimately. Let's have a look at some action tasks now to get you moving. So I want you to have a think about first, what do people frequently ask your advice about? This is a really interesting one. It's a really interesting way to look at how you can connect with people. Is what is it that people, whether it's family, friends, or guests, what is it that they ask your advice about? People always ask me about booking travel, right? Where should I go? Or how can I travel more sustainably? That's a big one I get. It's because people perceive from the way I talk about this, they get my passion, they know my knowledge is there as well. I also get asked about traveling with children a lot, because we do a lot of that at home. Okay, so you don't have to write down your answers to these now, and you're going to have the slides, but I want you to just have it in your head. What is it that people frequently ask your advice about? Next one is, what subjects could you happily talk about endlessly? I asked my husband this, and his eyes rolled when I asked that question, and he said, well, where do you want me to start? But when I put it into context, he did say that when I'm sharing tips on marketing properties, which I can talk about forever, that is something that really gets me going. So, what's yours? Is it that you love doing hiking and walking, and you can really, really share your insider knowledge about that? Does it motivate you? Do you feel really happy when you're talking about those things with your guests? So have a think about that. What is it that you could endlessly talk about your friends, family, and guests with? And then the next one is a really, really interesting one. We've all had that warm and mushy feeling we get when somebody is just super excited about something we've said to them or told them, or a tip we've shared. And when you do that, you've really made somebody's life better or easier. There's nothing really else there. You've either made someone's life easier or better by sharing this tip that they didn't know. So have a think about it at checkouts. When was the last time you got someone saying to you, wow, that was so useful or so helpful, or I didn't know that, and I'm so happy I know that. And what value was it that you gave that person to solicit such a positive response? Okay. Now, like I said, you can go back to these questions and write them down when you have time. But right now, there's some actions I'd like you to take about defining your messaging. So we've talked a little bit about who you are, what authentic messaging you can come up with because you're answering those 3 questions we just put up. And now I want you to have a look at the type of people who you've had in your property. So this is technically a little bit of a customer profile approach, looking at your customer profiles, but we're going to take it a little bit deeper. So over the last 6 months, I don't think there's any point going any further back, what type of person or group has visited your property the most? So not everyone, just look for patterns. And I would say to only write down 2 or 3. So it's either, you know, families with small children, or it's couples who are active, or couples who don't want to move too far, etc., etc. And then the next question is to go look at your inbox, or look at your social media inbox, look at the reviews, look at, when I say go to your inbox, I mean look at the questions you've got from people who've booked or who didn't book, which is also a good way to do it, because if they didn't book after you answered a question of theirs, then is that because you don't have the service they wanted? Are you not the best fit for them? What was it? Can you then adapt towards that within your brand personality? So being authentic to what you do, who you are, and how you want to come across to people. So those, what I suggest is to write down 6 of the most frequently asked questions you've had over the last 6 months. That's all. 6 questions that you've had more than once over the last 6 months. Those are going to become your pain points, the concerns, the worries that your customers have. And when you begin to address every single one of those using your authentic voice, because you know how to address them through the stories we're going to go on to, then you can create a kind of database that you share in different places and in different formats. So I'll explain that more when we get onto the stories area. So let's just go forward now and see. So for example, the customer's question you might have is that they want to know if the pool is safe for children. And so you can just answer that question and say, yes, pool is safe for children. That's fine, you know, that's that. But if you want to go further and actually explain or give more value, then you can use the stories we're going to look at now to help give some more richness and depth to the answer to that question. And then you can also use that information in your marketing online, on social media, etc. Okay. Then the next one is the stories element. I am going to ask you to, not now, but to create 3 authority and 3 approachability stories. Now, what do I mean by these? Think back for a second to what popped into your head in answer to those 3 questions about your brand personality. Those questions were the ones about what would your spouse or partner say that you can endlessly talk about? What was it that you shared with a client who was super happy about it? Those are the questions we just looked at there. And I'll explain this a little more by giving you an example. Authority stories are the ones that put you in a position of being reliable and trustworthy. Approachability stories are the ones that help you to take that a step further by resonating with people. The ultimate idea here is that you get people to, just by looking at short stuff on your website, excerpts or on social media, or just your above the fold homepage, to say, wow, this person gets me. They know what I want. They know who I am. They know my needs. So this is all part of this process. For me, one of the authority stories I have is that I increased those direct bookings at the luxury lakeside lodge that I managed. So I can prove that, I can show it, and you can see it, and that therefore you trust that I know what I'm talking about. One of my approachability stories is that I find it a struggle sometimes to manage running a business with raising a family and keeping a relatively tidy home, shall we say. And so I resonate with business owners because we all have the same problem. You might not have small kids at home like I do, but there's always other things happening. And so running a business while managing a home and keeping stable relationships, it can be a struggle at times. And so by me talking about that and sharing it with you, you also then feel that you could open up a little to me about the vulnerability you have in certain areas. And so that's what I mean about approachability stories. An example of a hotelier could be, an authority story could be that you actually lead local walking tours, or you're part of a local walking group where you organize the tour, the walks themselves. So that's an authority story because you know the best places to hike and where to avoid. An approachability story could be that you're a parent or a grandparent and you understand needs about traveling with children. And so putting this into a larger context, when you break it down, instead of thinking, what content am I going to put out there? If you try to connect with who you are, with what you want to say to the people you want to attract because you know their pain points, then you can actually use a structure, create a structure of stories that you can reuse in different formats. And so this helps you to create that trust online, and then putting it onto your website is the ultimate Google magnet, if you like. Google loves it when it can see that the content you have up there is resonating with the people who look at your website. So I keep repeating the word resonating, and that is so important, because if I look at a website that I don't resonate with, what do? I close it. And so Google thinks that website's not great. That person didn't stay on the website very long. That's the bounce rate, right? So we're going into the SEO techie names here, but ultimately that is what bounce rate is. You didn't like the content. So Google ranks websites higher that has quality content. And quality content is defined by being content that people want to consume. So to consume great content, it has to resonate with you as a customer. So that's why these steps are so important. They give life to your marketing content ultimately. Right, and then your unique value proposition. This is ultimately the one thing you're known for. And putting it into just a few words is really, really hard. And a lot of people need some guidance with this, because it's also difficult to do when it's your business. You might be a fantastic urban lodge that's within a walking distance of the main attractions wherever you are. But the people who stay at your property might actually find more value in the fact that you have a library of wonderful books and some corners where you can sit in silence to escape the noise of the city before and after a busy day. And so that's what I'm talking about by finding your unique value proposition. You might have the best safari guides in your destination, but do you also have some really unique activities for children so that the parents can relax in peace after you've been out doing all the great safari things? Because safari lodges, there are lots of them. And so to make your uniqueness very clear, you have to stand out to that target audience that you are talking to. You don't have to be a unicorn. I'm sure my daughter would like that everyone in the world is a unicorn, but you don't have to be a unicorn. You don't have to appeal to everyone either. You just do have to know what you do best and what your customers want. Okay, and then the link to this, we're almost finished with this first section. The link to this is that you then link the stories back to this unique value proposition and to whatever packages you create, so that people see that and they have that reaction of, perfect, this is what I need, this person gets me, I'm choosing that one. This is the only way we stand a chance at standing out online. It's the only way it will happen in these days, because there's just so much noise. There's so much noise online. So if we don't take the time to go through these steps, then we become part of that noise. We're asking people to use too many brain calories to understand who we are and what we do. So this is why doing that job, working out what those stories are and linking them back to our unique value proposition once it's created is absolutely crucial. Okay. Right, that's the first section done with. It's super important to understand that these are the steps for increasing direct bookings. There is no other way to do it. Over time, it will happen by putting these in place. But now, in the next section, we're going to have a quick look at some actionable tasks that make you feel like you're moving forward a little faster, because they are slightly more techy. So let's have a very quick look at those. Now we're on the direct connection part of the persuasive marketing compass. And we already learned, I've repeated it again and again, that messaging is necessary so we connect to stand out. So let's take a little bit, a look at a bit more about what we're looking for when we are aiming to increase our direct bookings. What does that actually mean? What does direct mean to you? It can be a combination of any of these, right? So it doesn't just mean a phone call or an email. It can be referrals, booking engine on the website, connections from social media. It can appear in as many places as possible. It's anywhere really where we have parity of information and we're attempting to convert people back to make a direct booking. That's kind of how we can describe it. So it can be a phone call, a walk-in, or straight from your booking integration website. This question I get a lot. Is there a normal hotel distribution setup in terms of percentages, in terms of who gets what? What's normal? Have I got too many OTA bookings? Have I got too few direct bookings? This is a really interesting question, and I found a really, really useful list here. This is from Skift. They did some research. It was actually in 2019. They haven't updated it for obvious reasons because of the pandemic. But I like to break this down into 3 sections. I do think this is slightly more complex than it needs to be. What I want to know is what percentage comes from direct, what percentage comes from OTAs, and what percentage comes from agencies and operators. Okay, they've got operators and agents separated out there, but in my mind, I want to know really direct OTAs and operators. So if you can see here on the next slide, direct is 43%. That includes 4% paid digital. The rest is organic. This is very good. Okay, and so this can help give you an idea about where to aim for. 43% is high, but it is doable when you put these actions in place. The next one then is OTAs are 32%. That's pretty normal. OTAs being 32% is pretty standard. There are some places that are taking up to 70%, 80% OTA bookings. I hear this also, and they have risen throughout the pandemic. Even though we had this period where people were booking direct, there is evidence from the big OTA's own research that says that people are drifting back towards them. Now, whether they're telling us that as part of psychology to get us to book more on the OTAs, I don't know. But there is evidence that we're drifting back towards booking with the OTAs. And again, why are people doing that? Because they're not finding the information that meets their needs on the website, or they're just not finding a way to book on the website that they land on. Okay, so 43% direct, 32% OTAs. And then if you add these up, agents, operators, global distribution systems, you're seeing there a further 23%. So if I did the maths right, then there's just an extra 2% at the bottom, which is in that other section. So using this framework, as I mentioned at the beginning, I grew direct sales from that marketing lodge from 19%, which was very low, to 46% in 12 months. And this took obviously months to do it. I wasn't working on it full time. It wasn't the one thing I was doing every day because I was managing the lodge, but it gives an indication of what you can do by putting these elements into place. It really is that simple. So let's move on now. What's your hotel distribution mix? That's my question. You don't have to answer it right now. I want you to just be aware of it. Go back and have a look at it. Pull some information from your system. There's no right or wrong. You might already know roughly, but go and have a look, because sometimes what you think you know is not quite right when you do go and have and take another look. This serves as a baseline, and success is directly related to the effort that's put in. And I know a lot of people have the desire to do this, but perhaps not the time. Well, that's why we need to embrace that it might take longer than we think. But if we do nothing, then we don't begin to increase our direct bookings. It really is that simple. Finding the balance between appealing to and engaging customers and managing an intuitive online conversion machine is a 2022 daunting task. It really is. We want our websites to sing and dance and be super happy, and people love it when they come on, but we also need it to be a conversion machine. Now, there's a certain incongruence there, because we're not Shopify. We're actually, the website that attracts people and wants to engage with them. So this pillar sets out the important foundations that we must get right to even have a chance at doing what we set out to and pulling in the direct bookings. So there is some tech you need to know. How does Google rank a website? This is crucial, absolutely crucial, and too many people don't know. There's no way of running a business right now without making Google happy. It is a fact. They're also moving into the travel space. How that develops is a different matter, a different question, a different conversation. But right now, with this amount of searches going on every single day in Google, we really must make Google happy. This has to be a priority. And we already talked about one way to make Google happy is by having the kind of information that resonates with the customer when they reach the product. Okay. Oh, did I just miss one there? No, there we go. And so here's what Google is looking for. Load speed, mobile friendliness. You probably know all this, but when was the last time it was checked? Parity of information, relevant information crawl. That is what I was just talking about. That's just the Google phrase. So they crawl your website for relevant information. And how do they know it's relevant? Because people consume it. How do they know people consume it? Because they spend time on your site. They don't just look at the homepage and close it. They then have a look at other pages on your site. And they also click around. That's what inbound and outbound links are about. So it's a really interesting thing that needs to be done on your site is to put in links that helps people move around within your site and also to other sites. That could be for a trusted site, for example, your local tourist board, or to a restaurant that you work with, or to an operator, for example. So those are the kind of inbound, outbound links that Google deems as being trustworthy, and it wants to see them being used on your site. If they don't get used, then it starts to think they're not relevant, and therefore you can see the pattern. It doesn't reward you as being as trustworthy as a site as you could be, therefore you don't appear as high up in the organic results. The three here that I just highlighted are all about whether you understand your audience enough to have created the information, stories, messaging that engages them. So we've talked about this. If it's not resonating with them, then they're not going to stay on the site. Okay. Parity of information is all about the Google My Business page. Now that is a whole workshop in its own right. And so many people I spoke to recently, in fact, some very, very brave hoteliers said to me, I actually had to Google how to access my Google My Business page. Now that's nothing to be ashamed of. It's actually not, it's not that easy. It's not that intuitive, shamefully, for Google to get to your Google My Business page, unless you have it stored on your laptop as a tab. If you'd like to know more about updating your Google My Business page, then I can do a separate workshop just on that. So you can always drop a message in the chat or hang around at the end to find an opportunity about working one-on-one with me, because this is one of the things that we will cover. Okay. So quickly moving on to reduce reliance, it's 20 to 11. This one is all about reducing reliance on anyone, not just the OTAs. The pandemic taught us that life is not as predictable as we expected, and we cannot rely on others to keep our businesses afloat. I had someone recently say, don't put all your eggs in one basket, which we've all had, but especially when you're not carrying the basket, which I think is a fair point, because yeah, we're not carrying that basket when we're walking around, expecting OTAs to do the job for us. Okay, so I'm all about balance. There are some benefits of working with the OTAs. This should be your focus on two levels: before people arrive and during their stay. And what I mean by that is that there are ways to convert people who did book with an OTA before they arrive, so that they don't actually honor their OTA booking and they book direct. But also there are ways to convert OTA bookers into direct bookers in the future, whether that's at your hotel or not. There is an educational job we all have here to drop in the ocean, try and teach people that booking direct has more value for them, not just more money for us, because we don't pay commission, right? And so there is a collective reason for doing this too. But In general, the OTAs can help us with reaching markets that we wouldn't necessarily reach. We have access to analytics and data, which we tend never to look at, but there is actually some really interesting stuff there about who's looking at your destination and from where. And then the chance to convert to direct, as I've just said. So we're going to have a really quick look at ways to convert to direct before and during. And one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen happen in hotels, in fact, one I had a very long fight about to change at the luxury lodge that I was managing back in Chile. If you have bookings that return as an OTA booking, this is the perfect sign that you're doing something really wrong. So if you've got one OTA booking, it's okay, we're going to get them, it's not a problem. But you then have an inherent responsibility to try and convince them in some way, not in their face, there are ways to do it, to return as a direct booker in the future. And as I said before, whether that's your property or somebody else's. These monopolies are accounting for over 60% of bookings worldwide, 70% or more in Asia Pacific, Latin America, Eastern Europe, and the Middle East. OTAs are capturing roughly 64% of online lodging bookings, according to a Focusrite report. However, up to 35% of hotel bookings are a result of a traveler discovering the hotel on a third-party site and then visiting the hotel's website to book direct. This is huge. It was 23%, and SiteMinder's report came out just a few months ago, and this has been updated to 35%. This is called the Billboard Effect. When you understand this, the tasks that you need to drive direct bookings make much more sense. So have a think again, back to your homepage. So somebody looks on the OTA, they find a hotel, they think, oh, that's quite nice. I'm going to have a look on the site and see if there's any better deal. They put your name into Google. So you're already really one step ahead. They've just put your name into Google, but they haven't decided to book yet. What will they find when they Google your hotel name? Will they come up with all the booking.coms at the top, etc.? That's an argument towards whether you should actually bid on your own brand name, but that's a very different conversation because we're talking about putting money forwards for that. But what will they find if they get to your website, they open it up? Will it resonate with them? Is it seamless? Is it intuitive? Does it resonate with them? Does it connect with them? All the things we've just said before. Would they be able to answer those 5 questions I posed in the first section? Who are you and what motivates you? What do you do? Who do you serve? What's the value you offer? And how can someone book with you? One of the biggest mistakes I see as well is that there's no progress option or no way that people can see what they need to do. Now, we know it's obvious. You've got to click the button that says check availability and book now, right? We know it is, but we don't want people to use their brain calories. So we should tell them, and people like things in 3s. So browse our rooms, check availability, book through our secure booking engine. Very, very simple stuff. But when we reduce the amount of calories people need to use in their brains to understand what we want them to do, then it really starts to have a great effect. So you can see how this is all kind of coming together. The attractive website is a must, and it must be combined with a seamless conversion engine, as we've already seen. So the top 3 ways to convert OTAs to OTA bookers to direct. Now, you can say this is underhand. You can also say it's just smart. Contact them after the reservation to offer something of value. Now, why not do it? There is nothing in the OTA contracts that say you can't. You've got their generic email from the OTA. There is no reason why you can't send them an email and say, oh, actually, I see you booked this way. We actually offer an early check-in. If you book through us, if you'd like to take advantage of that, then all you need to do is just cancel the booking, and that's all you need to do. We have all your information, and we're going to make sure that you stay with the dates that you booked, etc. Maybe it's free parking, whatever it is. But this, or a fast check-in. If you register here for the fast check-in, and then you guarantee that you get their real email address, and then you have them on your on your database. So if you don't feel comfortable saying to them, cancel that booking and come direct because we have this great value for you, if you do, then you can also just tell them that you're going to offer them a fast check-in, but you need them to re-enter their email address because you want to guarantee that you have all the right information or something like that. And then they give you their real database, their real email address, because from a lot of the OTAs, you get those fake ones that, well, they're not fake, but the ones that disappear, after time. Give them an awesome experience. This is the fight I just mentioned I had at the Luxury Lodge. Every time anyone came with an OTA booking, they were put in the room next to the lift. Now, there was not really anything essentially wrong with that room, but it was smaller and it was, we weren't treating those people like someone who we wanted to convert or convince that next time booking direct is better. If anything, it just caused problems and they ended up writing bad reviews. Okay, so this is a really big mistake. Don't do that. You've still got to treat them as you would everyone else. And I'm very sure that all of you are doing that, but it's always stuck in my mind that that was a real issue. And it took me a lot of hours of convincing to stop them doing that. You might not have been successful at converting that guest this time into a direct booker, but they will share their experience. So if you stick them in the smallest room, they're going to share that experience on that OTA page, which is where you actually want people to be getting or reading great reviews so that they think, maybe there's more to this place. It sounds fantastic. I'm going to have a look at their website, right? And then remind them they're missing out on a direct booking value. So if they're already in your property, I've said this before, and I'm sure some of you have already seen it, but it's so simple. It's so simple. A little A4 certificate in a frame in reception that says, thank you so much for booking direct. You'll find a gift to show our appreciation in your room. And you obviously put it to the side when you're checking in your OTA booker, but you would be showing it to your direct booker, of course, but just make sure that the OTA booker sees it. It gives them something that it's quite powerful when they think, oh, I've missed out on something here. I've really missed out. Yeah. Right, so now we're going to move on to the last one, which is all about sustainable action. Now, why is my Persuasive Marketing Increasing Direct Bookings Compass including sustainable action? It's very simple. It's because it's not just the right thing to do, but it helps you to stand out and it helps you to connect with customers. It helps you to showcase your values and it generates awesome content. This is what we all need more of, right? And when you actually can talk about what you're doing in your community, then we actually get people to resonate more with us because they see authenticity, they see trust, they like what we're doing. It really is that simple. And also, these stats came from the Booking.com Sustainable Travel Report in 2021. You can read that one yourself. And actually, what's more, 53% of people in that same report admitted to getting annoyed if somewhere they are staying stops them from being sustainable by not providing recycling facilities that they're used to having at home, for example. And so, again, it's an educational opportunity. And this is an interesting one. A very recent Expedia report from March 2022 says 74% of consumers would choose a destination, lodging or transportation option that's committed to supporting the local community and culture, even if it was more expensive. This is interesting. Now, admittedly, not all consumers are at the conscious decision-making stage of their sustainability awareness, but it's interesting to see what generations or what customers are moving in that direction. So it's not across the board. Not everyone will say, yes, I'm going to pay more for sustainable hotel, but those people who are growing every single day. This insightful report from the Euromonitor shows the top 10 global consumer trends for 2022. And I love how the graphic breaks down the global population by generation. The first thing is I didn't know that the littlies were called the Generation Alphas. I think that's really great. But Generation Z and Millennials make up 44% of the population. Millennials are currently 26 to 40 years old. They're parents, new parents, they're homemakers, they're decision makers. They have disposable income. They are already your customers. Generation Z are currently between 10 and 25 years old. The younger half are those trailblazers who are inspired by people like Greta Thunberg and Extinction Rebellion, and they know more about plastic pollution and biodiversity loss than we do. And so they might not be your customers right now, but they will be soon. And even if they're not making buying decisions, then they are influencing the ones who do. So understanding who they are and what drives them is critical for business resilience and sustainability as we move forward. So many reasons why building a more sustainable business makes sense. It's just simply the right thing to do. I've said it. Being kinder to the planet assures business longevity. So if we are looking at wild weather events in the place where we live and we're not doing our bit and educating other people to be better, to help with the problems that there are, then our business will not have a future in the long run. It also gives a competitive advantage of aligning your values with what we know that existing marketing channels are rewarding you for. Booking.com, Google, Expedia in the last 12 months have all launched eco-certified badges. Now, my ideal scenario would be that every hotel has one, and therefore it doesn't give you that competitive advantage, but right now it still does very much. It can be used in the filter. And so going back to the buying decisions of the customers, when all things are equal, and the location, the type of property and the prices has been organized in the potential customer's mind, then when all things are equal, if conscious travel, sustainable travel, being kind to the planet mean anything to me, and I put that filter in, then I lose out if I don't have that badge. And so these are just sensible, important ways to stay relevant as we move forward. And then the other one, as I've said before, is, I missed one there, the engaged and committed staff. Really, really important, because new staff coming in to work at properties tend to come from the younger generations, the ones who are already, it's kind of intrinsic that they want to know what a company is doing in terms of their sustainability. People don't want to be connected with a company that's not doing something, no matter how small. So it can actually get the right kind of staff to have the right attitude, and that obviously is then pushed on to your guests. They see that, they perceive it, and it's a lot easier to build a sustainable business when your staff are on board. Really is very simple. And then the fresh and appealing marketing content. This is great. It's such an easy way to engage conscious-minded post-pandemic travelers by just every now and again posting something where you're weaving your whole sustainability actions, ethos, and results into your general marketing. Okay. And this is really interesting. Talking about content, this is from the same Expedia report. What type of sustainable travel information do people want to see during their trip planning process? This is telling us what we should be writing about. This is telling us it's right there. From knowing about restaurants that are conscious aware. I can't see the top one, actually, it's covered over on my screen. Right down to how to pack more sustainably. They're giving us content ideas, so we should be using this, breaking it down, using it in social media, on blogs, and on our website. And I'm going to close, we're coming to a close now, but there's such a wonderful example here, best example of sustainability marketing, which actually ticks all the boxes of everything we've just said, everything in the whole presentation. It was a lady who was in her 80s running a B&B in the UK. She knows who she is, what she values, and how to connect, but she didn't realize that she was actually creating a wonderful branding personality, or that she was doing amazing intrinsic sustainability marketing. She used to take children who were staying into the wildflower field at the side of her property and pick some flowers with them, all at the same time talking about the bees and the planet and how, just in her way, okay? She would press the flowers with the children, and while they were being pressed, she would give a child an envelope and write down, ask them to write their address on it. She would give another child, or the same child, a postcard and ask them to draw something that was reminded them of their holiday or something they'd done on their holiday. And then she said to the parents, you know, these flowers need to dry, and I'll be in touch. And so towards Christmas, she packaged up the dried flowers onto the card with the picture and the handwritten envelope and posted it off. So what happened at Christmas, that was the gift that this family got. And all of a sudden they're overwhelmed by the memories of their great holiday. They've got this envelope with a handwriting of their own kid. I mean, that's like the best thing that can happen at breakfast in our house, if it ever happens. You know, and there's a picture that they've drawn themselves. And then where do you put a card at Christmas? On your mantelpiece, probably, or in your kitchen. And who comes at Christmas? Loads of family. And who says, oh, look at that card, isn't that nice? And she also wrote in there, you know, I don't know, 15% discount if you book before the 30th of January. This is just gold dust. She had no clue what she was doing. She had no clue that this was amazing marketing. Or maybe she did. She was just very, very quiet about it. But that's the kind of marketing that really resonates with people. And she got so many direct bookings then. And then all the people who'd seen the card at the house as well said, oh, what a great idea. I think we'll come and stay there too. So I just wanted to close or begin to close with that nice story, because I think it's so lovely. And it's just something to realize that there's always a lot we can do. Okay. So we've gone through this quickly. In fact, it's taken 5 minutes longer than I wanted it to, but now you've gone through these pillars, just say to yourself, or pop it in the chat, on a scale of 1 to 5, do you think you are more clued up about what you can do to increase your direct bookings? I know that you all want to get involved in increasing direct bookings and improving profit margins. And I'm looking for a handful of people, handful only, to guide through these pillars in much more detail, tailored to your own businesses, because this 1 hour workshop gives you so much information. We can't tailor it to everybody's businesses right now. And so I'm offering a challenge to do lots of groundwork with me over the next 30 days and to work the strategy into the future that helps you to build those direct bookings over the coming months. So I'm looking for, like I said, just a handful of people to go through this 30-day challenge with me. Every Tuesday, there will be a session like this, but it will be just with those people who are involved. 60-minute live session on each pillar of the Persuasive Marketing Compass. And then there'll be some work that I would like you to do. And then I'm going to check in with you and include a 30-minute one-on-one call per week per participant, and continuous email support, obviously, to answer all your questions. I know you're probably thinking right now, am I going to pay for this because this was free? And is she going to do that for free too? Well, the one-on-one calls themselves are worth quite a lot. I do charge quite a lot for those one-on-ones, but I would like to offer this at just $100 per personal property. And the reason this is so affordable is that I just have the time right now. The pandemic's over. There are still many challenges that remain, and I want to do my bit to help guide you through this while also refining my work to get you the results that you really, really need, so I can help more people in the future. And all I ask in return is that you show up to the calls and that you share your successes as we move forward, so that I can help more people as we go on. So that is it from me. I'm happy to take any questions now. Feel free to unmute yourself or pop them in the chat. There's a link to sign up if you want to take part in this 30-day challenge, and you can connect with me there on LinkedIn or via my Facebook group if you're not already there.